I've recently retired. I've sold my business and I've made various investments for the future. I've been happily married for over 40 years, but we have no children or financial dependents. However, I would like to leave money to the next generation of family and friends. What do I need to do?
Make a will, obviously. They've mentioned next generation of family and friends, so make sure that they provide provision for them. They might want to think about some clients that don't have direct descendants often might want to think about in charities, for example. So charities are exempt from paying inheritance tax as well. So sometimes it's a good way of tax planning. They don't have to, obviously, but you do find when they don't have close family members to leave their assets to, they might want to think about that. But yeah, they obviously need to make and update a will and think about that those next generation if they want to include the other family and friends. Again, we talked about earlier the intestacy rule. So if they die without a will in this scenario, it's going to be very difficult, especially if something happens to both of them, because it doesn't sound like there's close direct descendants to inherit.
Yeah. And then from a family perspective, I think it would probably be a case of looking at a post-nuptial agreement. So as things stand at the moment, if they were to pass away after marriage, their surviving spouse would receive everything. But ultimately, if they want to leave things for particular members of the family, distant relatives or anything like that, then they need that post-nuptial agreement, because what the post-nuptial agreement would do is it would say these are the assets that are mine and these are ones that I would deal with as I see fit in accordance with my will. So it wouldn't automatically pass to the survivor.
We're a married lesbian couple looking to start a family. We have a friend who has agreed to help us become parents by donating his sperm, and we have said that he can be involved in parenting. However, we want to do it all properly with legal agreements and wills. What do we need to do and think about?
So from a family perspective, because it's an informal arrangement, it means that the second partner wouldn't automatically acquire rights. If they were going through a clinic, then both of the parents would be acquiring rights automatically. In this case, because it's informal, they would still need to get a parental order, but there would need to be certain arrangements they would need to go through. So there's two different ways we could achieve it. One is what's called a child arrangements order, which used to be called contact and residence and custody, using the old terminology. That would set out effectively who the child lives with. Anyone who the child lives with automatically acquires parental responsibility. So you could then effectively mean that parental responsibility would be shared between three of them, the couple and the person who is the sperm donor. However, if you wanted that the person who was the sperm donor was going to be not as heavily involved and you didn't want them to have parental responsibility, then they'd be looking at a parental order. There's certain criteria you have to go through, and it would be a case of living together, being over 18, and that you'd have to then effectively get the consent or have the court satisfaction to dispose of the person's consent who's the sperm donor. But what the parental order would do is it would make the couple the legal parents of the child, and effectively not necessarily cut out the other parent who's the sperm donor, but it would mean they wouldn't have a legal standing or legal position. And then it would be down to the couple to then decide how much involvement the sperm donor had in the relationship and in the upbringing of the child.
And they probably in their wills want to think about guardianship, obviously, and how that child's looked after. If something happened to both of them, the sperm donor, they might want to be the guardian or be involved. And do they want to leave provision for that person to help look after the child, provision for guardians to look after the child, holding money in trust for that child, and making sure that it's very clear. Also, what I do say to clients in these scenarios is, you don't have to put it all in the will. The will is the legal document. And, you know, when you appoint the guardian, that's the person that will be the guardian if something happens to both of you, as long as it's in the child's best interests, etc. But they could also write maybe a letter of wishes to go with the will in relation to how they want that child to be brought up. So often clients will write something about what type of school they want them to go to, what sort of area they want to live in. And it's not binding because it all depends on circumstances, obviously. But, you know, in this scenario, because there's a few people involved and probably going to be involved in the child's life, it might be better that they write something as well to go with their will, just to let others know what their wishes are.
Yeah, communication is certainly going to be key for that one, I think, isn't it? To make sure all three of them know what involvement they are or aren't going to have in the child's life and their upbringing. Because certainly if you wait for the child to be born and people are on different pages for whatever reasons, then that's where problems can start to arise. So I definitely think the first thing would be sitting down, the three of you, and saying, okay, well, how do we see bringing up this child? And ultimately, everything will be guided what's best for the child.
Yeah.
And that's what they need to be thinking about.